The regular meeting of the City Council was held in person on Thursday, September 26, 2024, at 7:00 p.m. for the purpose of transacting any and all business. Notice this meeting was posted on September 24th, 2024 at 2:18 p.m. This meeting is being recorded and is live on SATV and Zoom unless technological issues interrupt the transmission. Councilors absent, none. Councilor President Hapworth presided. Councilor Varela moved to dispense with the reading of the previous record. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. President Hapworth requests that everyone please rise and recite the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilor Watson-Felt. States to the republic which stands civil. Salem City Council honors this land as Namkeg, or fishing place, where generations of Namkeg people from the Pawtucket Band of the Massachusetts tribe lived and passed through for centuries. We acknowledge this unceded indigenous land and also acknowledge the Massachusetts tribe who continue to honor and hold this land into the present. Salem City Council is committed to having ongoing meaningful dialogue with indigenous peoples who have presence in Salem in order to dismantle the legacies of oppression and inequities that persist today. Public testimony. Public testimony is not to exceed 15 minutes. Public testimony is not a public hearing or question and answer period. Sign-up must occur 30 minutes prior to the meeting. The president shall, depending on the number of speakers, set a time limit not to exceed 3 minutes, which each individual presenting testimony must abide. We have 15 people signed up today. That is 1 full minute for each speaker. Up first is Jane Arlander.
Good evening, councilors and members of the public. My name is Jane Arlander, and I live at 93 Federal Street. I'm here tonight to voice my objection to changing Salem's historic city seal. After considerable deliberation, I have concluded that the allegations put forth against the city seal and Salem's associated maritime endeavors in the Far East are unsubstantiated by historical fact. Furthermore, I believe that there is no proof that even a simple majority of the AAPI community supports changing the seal. Frankly, this attempt to tamper with our city seal is nothing more than another witch hunt. The formation of a small task force will only result in an inquisition. With all due respect to members of the AAPI community, for which I'm a member, I urge this council to table this.
Mary Ann Curtin. It's 1 minute per speaker.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Mary Ann Curtin. I live at 35 Forester Street in Salem, and I would like to express my dismay that the council would even consider changing the city seal. The city is a historic place in our history, and part of the seal is that history going to the Far East and bringing back spices and various and sundry things that have made our country base. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. John Carr.
Good evening. My name is John Carr. I reside at 7 River Street. I'm the author of a letter to the editor that was published in the Salem News last Friday under the title of Have We in Salem Gone Completely Nuts? That letter sets forth precisely and in detail why I am opposed to changing the Salem City seal and why I think that effort is a complete and utter waste of this body's time and energies. We have a lot more real and important issues to deal with in Salem, issues like making sure our Salem public schools work, making sure Salem is affordable for our seniors and minorities, and making sure that Salem's real estate taxes compare favorably with other local communities. This recommendation should never have made it out of committee. I ask that you decisively vote it down.
Thank you, John. Carol Carr.
Good evening. My name is Carol Carr. I live at 7 River Street and have so for over 50 years. I completely agree with everything that my husband, John Carr, just said. Plus, if you still need convincing, I strongly urge you to consider the very long and thoughtful email you have all received from Salem-born Michael Feener, also opposing changing the Salem City Seal. Mr. Feener is a professor of Southeast Asian Studies at Kyoto University, which is one of the foremost universities in Japan. Professor Feener's opinion is also shared by 3 prominent citizens of present-day Sumatra, namely an architect, a project manager, and an anthropologist. All of them express their shared pride that 2 peoples from radically different cultures, religions, and histories could come together 200 years ago for the mutual benefit of both. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Thomas McDonald.
I could say in 60 seconds, but regarding the city's ordinance, regarding the city's ordinance with the Board of Health inspections to have one every 3 years. In regards to the Section 8 apartments, they're already inspected once per year, so to have it inspected an additional once every 3 years, basically, you'll be inspecting the same apartment every 9 months, which is kind of ridiculous. The Section 8 tenant will also have to take time off from work, which would be problematic for them. I understand if it's, someone in an apartment that's been empty for like 30 years and no one's looked at it, but once every 9 months is kind of ridiculous. I do believe it's going to lead to problems with the I believe it's going to increase the affordable housing. As a landlord, the aggravation is going to be the same with a tenant that's not subsidized or subsidized.
Thank you, Thomas.
Yep.
Flora Tontat.
At a very basic level, it's not okay to use an ethnic minority person of any kind of branding in 2024, especially after Black Lives Matter, which sparked the reexamination of embedded racial stereotypes in our culture by corporations and civic institutions. It is now understood that all ethnic stereotypes, whether positive or negative, cause harm. They promote a false or misleading association between a group and an attribute, in this case, the Sumatran, fostering a disrespectful relationship. I believe this fairy tale, having lived in here since 1997, I only learned of the dark and disturbing history of the connection with Sumatrans in recent weeks. A few of us have read academic papers of brutal mass killings of innocent civilians in Sumatra that appears to give a whole new meaning to the intended symbolism of the Sumatran man in the seal.
Justin Whittier.
Thank you, Justin Whittier, 10 River Street. I want to say that the arrogance of this conversation is astounding to me. We are all temporary custodians of Salem's heritage. You are temporary holders of these chairs. You have no right to alter our history based on the whim of a tiny few. And yet, that is blithely what you are seeking to do. The city seal is a historic artifact worthy of preservation in its own right, and we have been given no reason to replace it other than highly idiosyncratic reactions largely based on misunderstandings of what the seal is and what it represents. It's not a caricature or a logo. It's not branding or stereotype. It's none of these things. But if it is, that portrait right there is every one of those things. We've heard in these chambers that if you're not part of the affected community, you have no right to an opinion. Well, the affected community here is the Achinese community, and you have all heard from members of the Achinese community. You received that email from Professor Feener. They not only felt that there was nothing racist about it, they supported it, they appreciated it, and they hope that it wouldn't be changed. I ask you please to do the right thing
DT Alawat.
and vote against the creation of this task.
DT Alawat.
Hi, my name is Dr. Aditi Alawat. I live in Ward 2. I was amongst the members of the public who spoke in favor of creating an alternative city seal 2 weeks ago. When it came for people who opposed the change, I heard someone say that they weren't even aware of anyone who felt the seal needed to be changed. That made me feel extremely invisible in this community. It also made me wonder how many of us have to speak before seal supporters will acknowledge that there's a concern in this Asian community. Us living, breathing Asian people who live in Salem, Massachusetts. Since then, I've seen blog posts and news media articles, excuses about why the seal shouldn't change. It feels as though some folks expect us to fall into the stereotype of meek Asians who will quickly back down if you shout loudly enough or you find someone in another corner of the world to support your idea. Well, I will not back down. I will speak in favor of changing stereotypes in modern America. Thank you.
Noah Safarian.
Hi, my name is Noah Safarian. I'm a resident of Ward 2. My background, by the way, is a historian. I have a master's in history with a focus on 19th century America. Some are going to say the seal is a sign of respect for the Sumatra people or respect of how cosmopolitan Salem is. But that conveniently ignores that the Sumatran people didn't seem to love their interactions with the Salemites in the 19th century. Just 8 years before the seal was adopted, the local Sumatrans attacked the famed friendship ship. In response, the U.S. engaged in a retaliatory expedition with the Navy that killed over 400 Sumatrans. This was known as the first Sumatran expedition. The second one came again in 1838 after trading vessel was again attacked by Sumatrans. That certainly puts a different spin on the city's adoption of the seal a year later. The seal is about celebrating conquest and the acquisition of wealth. It's not about, yes. It's not.
Thank you, Noah. Let's let people speak, please. Rachel Tontat.
Hi, I'm here to speak in favor of changing the seal, or rather, in favor of creating the opportunity for all of us to meet together over 18 months to discover more about the history. History, as we know, is just a story, and it's also a living story. This moment right here is also history. So we're not just changing it, we're adding to it. And I really hope that you guys give us the opportunity to just, again, start this conversation, which will take plenty of time to uncover, and we can bring up all these facts together.
Thank you, Rachel. Maria Belesis.
I feel like I'm going to make a lot of enemies right now, but I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to be a concerned citizen. I'm a little surprised by this conversation when we are a sanctuary city and our federal government has failed us. And if you sit and actually watch other town halls where this is failing, you're hearing just like terrifying stories. So nobody's talking about this. And I also want answers and a clear outline about what we have to give up as Salem residents to bring about this 15-minute city / or the C40, whatever they're calling it now. I lived in Greece during COVID. Our lockdown was significant and we couldn't leave our little 15-minute community. It was a test run. I see what's happening. It is unreal. We need to wake up. We're not going to spend money changing a sign when my taxes have gone up $3,000 in the last 3 years. In the meantime, I can't drink my water because I get a headache from it.
Amy McKeon.
What are we talking about here, guys?
Amy McKeon.
Good evening, everyone. This was a missed opportunity, just to involve residents, but to educate us. Instead of engaging in the community and sharing our city's rich maritime history, discussing how the seal might impact some of our neighbors, this has turned into mudslinging and negativity. Suddenly many, including myself, have become experts on the seal. I want everyone in our community to feel valued, welcomed, and loved, but the way this issue has been handled has only deepened divisions. Allowing any special interest group to dictate local government decisions without full public involvement sets a dangerous precedent, and it won't stop here. As a volunteer to the info booth, I love talking about a maritime history. So as I tell all the wonderful visitors to our city of peace, yes, there are residents that actually live here. Please respect all of us, our home and our history. And I ask the council to do the same. Respect all of us residents and
Thank
leave
you.
our seal
Thank you, Amy.
alone. Thank you.
Cindy Johnson.
Good evening, Cindy Johnson, 13 River Street. I'm here to oppose establishing a task force in redesigning the city seal. The city seal is not a brand. It wasn't designed ever to be a brand. It's a historically accurate representation of our rich maritime history and connection to the Achenese people, many of whom have contacted council to say that they see the seal as a source of pride and connection to Salem to this day. Our city's maritime history often takes a back seat to the witch trials history. And that's unfortunate. This is an opportunity to listen to the voices of the Achenese as they have contacted you and the emails you received. And this is time to avoid erasing an important part of our maritime past. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Move to the online. Up first will be Ty Pompous. If you are available, please raise your hand. We'll allow you to speak. Nobody. Mayabi Shields. Mayabi, you should be able to speak now. Sorry. You can start again, Mayabi. Still not hearing you.
Hi, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Mayabi Shields, and I'm a resident of Ward 7. I'm here to speak in favor of the seal and into the task force to just look at the history. Why are we so afraid of a historical review? I've been told here since I've moved here a few times that people are hoping that I would stay, which implies that other people have left and other people have been pushed out. And I think that the response and the insistence that it should matter how long those of us have been here physically is part of the problem. I think it's embarrassing, and I think it highlights the need for more history and more perspectives and more public education. And I think that it'd be great to have more of these conversations altogether, because it's not just about this, it's not just about what people want to happen. It is about what we can see all of us together going towards in the future. And I think that we should be open to talking to each other about it. And that's what this is. It's about a conversation. Why are we so afraid to start a conversation? Thank you.
All right, hearings.
We have a request from National Grid to install 2 jointly owned poles on Almeida Street at the intersection of Highland Avenue and Almeida Street.
Those appearing in favor, please make your way to the podium.
Sabita Mahaber Shihi, representing National Grid, 44 River Street, Beverly, Massachusetts. This is to provide service for the 2 new homes going in at that location.
Say that again, Sabita, just so everyone at home can hear you as well.
This is to provide service for the 2 new homes at that location.
Any questions from the council for Sabita? Seeing none. Anyone else appearing in favor, please make your way to the podium. Seeing none. Anyone online appearing in favor, please raise your hand and we'll allow you to speak. Seeing none. Moving to people appearing in opposition. Anyone appearing in opposition, please make your way to the podium. Seeing none. Anyone online appearing in opposition, please raise your hand and we'll allow you to speak. Seeing none. Councilor Harvey.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move to close the public hearing.
Councilor Harvey moves to close the public hearing. All those in favor? Any opposed? Public hearing is closed. Councilor Harvey.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move that this be granted.
Councilor Harvey moves this be granted. Any discussion?
No discussion.
Council on the motion that this be granted. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further hearings.
We have a request from National Grid to install one jointly owned pole on Margin Street at the intersection of Summer Street and Margin Street.
Anybody appearing in favor?
Beta Mahaber Sheehy, representing National Grid, 44 River Street, Beverly, Massachusetts. After speaking with the ward counselor, we are going to table this for now for further discussion.
Thank you. Anybody else appearing in favor? Seeing none. Anyone appearing opposed? Seeing none. Anyone online appearing opposed or in favor? Seeing none. Councilor Morsillo.
Thank you, President. I move to continue this.
Councilor Morsillo moves to continue. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Sorry, until the next meeting. Yes.
Councilor Morsillo moves to continue until the next meeting. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries.
Thank you.
Appointments and reappointments.
We have held from the last meeting the mayor's appointment of Merle Schultz, 40 Summer Street, to the Sustainability, Energy, and Resiliency Committee with a term to expire September 9th, 2027.
Councilor Morsillo.
Thank you, President. I move for confirmation by roll call vote.
Councilor Morsillo moves for confirmation by roll call vote. Under discussion.
I just want to say how happy I am that Meryl has stepped forward to volunteer with this board. She's from my kids' generation, and I love that younger people are getting involved in the city that they grew up in and went to school in.
Any further discussion? Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Hepworth. I just want to mention that not only is Meryl a resident of Salem, she also has her degree at environmental studies and sustainability from UMass Amherst. I think that this is great. UMass Boston. Apologies. This is just great. We need more of our residents, especially our younger residents, to get involved when it comes to our city boards and commissions. So thank you, Meryl, for serving.
Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, President Hapworth. If it was UMass Amherst, I would be a little more excited. So Meryl actually has worked in the resiliency adaptation field and brings a perspective about wanting to balance resiliency and sustainability. And we had a really great chat about how important it is to recognize that environmental justice is social justice. And so I'm really excited that she's going to be doing her thing on the CERC committee.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for confirmation by roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Councilor Harvey?
Yes.
Councilor Jerslow?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor Marcillo?
Yes.
Councilor Prosnewski?
Yes.
Councilor Stott?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
Councilor Watson-Felt?
Yes.
And Councilor Hapworth?
Yes. On the mayor's reappointment of Meryl Schultz to the Sustainability, Energy, and Resiliency Committee, we have 11 councilors voting, 11 in favor, none opposed. The matter carries. Councilor Morsillo.
Thank you, President. I move for a suspension of the rules to allow Meryl to speak.
Councilor Morsillo moves for suspension of the rules. Seeing no objection, Ms. Schultz.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to be part of CERC. I hope to bring energy, urgency, empathy, and creativity to the committee and help Salem meet this crisis with intention. Thank you.
Further appointments, reappointments.
We have held from the last meeting the mayor's appointment of Brian Apito to the Public Art Commission with a term to expire September 9th, 2026.
Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move for confirmation by roll call vote.
Councilor Varela moves for confirmation by roll call vote. Under discussion.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I just want to thank Mr. Apito for just joining the Public Art Commission and being a part of our city boards.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for confirmation by roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cohen?
Yes.
Councilor Davis?
Yes.
Councilor Harvey?
Yes.
Councilor Jerslow?
Yes.
Councilor Merkel?
Yes.
Councilor Marcillo?
Yes.
Councilor Prosnewski?
Yes.
Councilor Stott?
Yes.
Councilor Varela?
Yes.
Councilor Watson-Felt?
Yes.
And Councilor Hapworth?
Yes. On the mayor's appointment of Brian Apito to the Public Art Commission, we have 11 councilors voting, 11 in favor, none opposed. The matter carries. Further appointments and reappointments. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move for suspension of the rules if Mr. Apito is on Zoom or in the room.
He's in the room. Councilor Varela moves for suspension of the rules. Seeing no objection, Mr. Apito.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to join my community and get started on the Public Art Commission and help bring beautiful art to our city and support local Salem artists. I'm excited to use my experience as an architect on this board.
Thank you. Further appointments and reappointments.
We have held from the last meeting the mayor's reappointment of the following 3 Salem residents to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move that we table.
Councilor Varela moves to table.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Morcillo. So in this case, Councilor Varela has laid it on the table, which means that it can come off with a majority vote, and there is no discussion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries.
I can say a word. I can't.
Can.
No debate. Doesn't matter.
If you have questions about the tabling of that matter, please email Councilor Varela. Further appointments and reappointments.
We have the mayor's appointment of the following to the Food Policy Council with term to expire on September 23rd, 2027. Shelmy Mendez and Celia Grant.
Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move that to be held under the rules.
Councilor Varela moves to be held under the rules. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries.
I don't know.
Further appointments and reappointments. Sorry. You don't have that ability? Stay. As soon as you're ready, let me know. All right, further appointments and reappointments.
We have the mayor's appointment of Thomas Panera Shields to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Board with a term to expire January 14th, 2026.
Councilor Cohen.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I'm very excited about this appointment, but I'm going to move to hold it under the rules.
Councilor Cohen moves to be held under the rules. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further appointments and reappointments.
We have the mayor's reappointment of Jim Bostic to the Public Art Commission with a term to expire September 24th, 2026.
Councilor Stott.
Thank you, President. I move that this be held under the rules.
Councilor Stott moves this to be held under the rules. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Communications from the mayor.
We have a bond order to recategorize 3 accounts of a total amount of $1,282,761 to school energy efficiency improvements.
Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move for suspension of the rules.
Councilor Merkel moves for suspension of the rules. Saying no objection. Councilor Merkel.
Thank you. I move for adoption for first passage by roll call vote.
Councilor Merkel moves for adoption for first passage by roll call vote. Under discussion.
Thank you. This order amends the fiscal year 2025 capital improvement plan bond authorization to change the description of 3 energy-related costs for school projects. The authorization originally approved allocation for the lighting, weatherization, infiltration reduction and controls. The amended order does not change the dollar amount, but it recategorizes all three of these projects into one allocation for energy efficiency improvements. So the scope of the work for these projects hasn't changed, but the Sustainability and Resiliency Department determined that the utility incentives for the lighting and weatherization projects will be more generous than anticipated, which is a good thing. And at the same time, the controls project is expected to cost more than planned and will require additional funds. And of note, control projects, that's the thermostats, heating and cooling systems for the schools. And categorizing these allocations will provide flexibility to complete these projects. There's additional info in the backup documentation from Director Neil Duffy. And I've also spoken to our finance director, Anna Friedman, about this as well. And I move for adoption for first passage by roll call vote.
Any further discussion? Councillor Cohen.
Thank you, President Hapworth. Regarding the controls, when this came before us before, Councillor Harvey and I had pretty extensive interaction with Mr. Duffy. And one of the things that we were really insistent on is that we were able to get out of the Amergy contract if we decided to that things were working as we thought they would be. And so that's still in the contract. And so if it either becomes too expensive or we don't need to use the contractor, we can get out of it. Just want to remind people about that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption by roll call vote, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Councillor Cohen?
Yes.
Councillor Davis?
Yes.
Councillor Harvey?
Yes.
Councillor Jerslow?
Yes.
Councillor Merkel?
Yes.
Councillor Misilo?
Yes.
Councillor Presnewski?
Yes.
Councillor Stott?
Yes.
Councillor Varela?
Yes.
Councillor Watson-Felt?
Yes.
And Councillor Hapworth?
Yes. And to be clear, that was adoption for first passage by roll call vote.
Correct.
On the first passage for the bond order, recategorizing three projects specified in FY25 CIP in the amount of $1,282,761. We have 11 councillors voting, 11 in favor, none opposed. Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have an order that the sum of $26,993.85 is hereby appropriated within the capital outlay account to cover the cost for fiber optic cable maintenance tasks for City of Salem-owned fiber optic cable system aerial plant.
Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move for a suspension of the rules.
Councilor Merkel moves for suspension of the rules. Seeing no objection, Councilor Merkel.
Thank you. I move for adoption.
Councilor Merkel moves for adoption. Under discussion.
Thank you. I've communicated with both Ms. Friedman, from our finance director, and Ms. Gansenberg, our deputy IT director, about this appropriation. And it is to pay for moving City of Salem-owned fiber optic cable lines from old poles to new poles that Verizon has put up. Verizon can't proceed with the rest of the work that they need to do without us moving these. So this is also a time-sensitive issue. And there is more information in the backup documentation as well, including a letter about this from Ms. Gansenberg. Also, if it's helpful to know about the fund, the capital outlay account is our Fund 2000. It's our pay-as-we-go capital, and free cash goes into it, and then it's used to fund small projects and avoid taking debt. So this is a really appropriate use of those funds. Thank you, and I move for adoption.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion for adoption, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further communications from the mayor.
We have a resolution and tax increment exemption agreement for 38 Norman Street, QOZB LLC.
Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move to refer this to the Committee on Administration and Finance.
Councilor Merkel moves to refer to the Committee on Administration and Finance. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries.
Under discussion.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Yes, thank you, even though I did move to refer it
Sorry, yes. Go ahead.
to Committee on Administration and Finance, I did want to offer a little,
Please.
just a little information about it, if that's okay. Yes. So this is to, and especially since I got some email, I got a couple of emails about this too. So I thought it'd be helpful to clarify. And this is to reapprove the resolution that authorizes the city to execute a tax increment exemption agreement between the city of Salem and 38 Norman, which is the Kinvara capital. And it's due to a change in the project from rental development to home ownership. We approved it on October 12, 2023, and it's a minimal tie agreement that provided 10% exemption for 5 years. And as a reminder, this was a project that consisted of mixed-use building with commercial space and 20 residential with 2 affordable at 60%. And the resolution in front of us, it's the same as what we approved. It's the change to rental. And I just, of note, the reason for the change is the increase in interest rates and construction since 2023. So the project doesn't work financially as rentals, which is disappointing because we need to increase our rental stock. But that being said, I feel a committee meeting is appropriate when we make any change to tax exemption agreements. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Watson-Felt.
Thank you, President Hapworth. Would the chair of the committee be willing to co-post with the committee of the whole?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, thank you.
So I change my motion to refer to the Committee on Administration and Finance, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole.
So any further discussion? On Councilor Jerslow.
Thank you, President Hapworth. Thank you for motioning that, Councilor Watson-Felt. I was also on the phone today with Amanda from Planning and the assessor because I had a lot of questions on it. So she said she would be at your meeting, so that's good that we could get our questions answered. Thank you.
Councilor Merkel.
Thank you, President Hapworth. Yes, when we have our committee meeting, I had spoken to Amanda yesterday at length as well, and we will invite a representative from the development to answer any questions as well to that meeting.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion to refer to the Committee on Administration and Finance, co-posted with the Committee of the Whole, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Mayor's informational page, none. Motions, orders, and resolutions, none. Committee reports. Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Hapworth. In the City of Salem and City Council, September 26, 2024, the Committee on Government Services co-posted with the Committee of a Whole, to whom was referred the matter of a redesign of the city seal, has considered such matter and would recommend it would remain in committee.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. On the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I will keep this one fairly brief because I will kind of roll into the task force. So we did meet about redesigning the city seal. This was the original order before the mayor proposed an order to basically establish a Cities of Salem task force to discuss the city seal. So we discussed the city seal and what process to go forward with. Just so the public is aware, this is an ordinance change, which will have to be changed by city council. So this will come back to the city council. So for that, I'll keep my comments brief because we're going to move on to the other one and I'll open up even more. Thank you.
On the adoption of the recommendation that this remain in committee, any further discussion on this? Seeing none, on the adoption of the recommendation this remain in committee, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further committee reports, Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Hapworth. City of Salem and City Council, September 26, 2024. The Government Service Committee, to whom was referred the matter of establishing a Salem City Seal Task Force, has considered said matter and would recommend adoption as amended.
On acceptance of the report, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. On the recommendation, under discussion.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I'll start with the changes in the order, and then we'll move on to comments for myself. So we met, obviously, on September 12th about this matter, And this is about the city seal. So within the city seal task force, it's going to consist of 11 members. Let me start with first who is joining us. We had Regina Zaragoza, our DEI director, who joined us, as well as Lisa Peterson from the mayor's office to give a little bit of testimony and comments. So concerning the discussion, we had members of our AAPI community, as well as a few members opposed to the city seal, discuss the reasons why maybe we should or should not change the seal. What came out of committee was a couple changes. The main changes being that the will of the body of the committee was to strike the city council membership and as a liaison, city council's membership. We strike that, so there will not be a city council member on that task force, and we replaced it with the city clerk or their designee to serve on the city seal task force. So that was the change. Other than that, the members stayed the same. Of 5 residents, 2 of whom would be at least Asian American or Pacific Islander community, and 1 who's under 18, and another 1 confirmed and just adopted by the mayor. So I have to say a couple things about this. I honestly did not think that a discussion of the city seal would cause a lot of insight on this. So, after dissecting all of the information that came into us, the historical documents from many residents, we have to take a deeper dive on this. And I think it would be uncouth and disrespectful not to have a larger conversation about our city seal. As we all know, history changes, and we need to be respectful and have these conversations. The one thing I wanted to say after doing my dive into the city seal is that when the city seal was adopted by ordinance in 1839, there was a lot going on within not only the United States, but the rest of the world. And we cannot forget the American expansion, which also concluded with Manifest Destiny. And it fueled a lot of our foreign policy here in the United States. And we cannot just be reminisced by, when it comes to the writing of history, that there is a deeply ingrained bias of what it really comes down to is having Southeast Asians that were characterized. And we all know that when it comes to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts seal, that's been a conversation for many decades. I think that the narratives have, when it comes to our history, narratives have been shaped, been reshaped to fit a certain agenda. And we cannot say that hasn't been. Perceptions shaped by pre-existing biases are also something we have to take in consideration. And we cannot exclude that British and American authors consistently drew parallels between Southeast Asians and Native Americans, as identifying them as savages or less than. This is something that, after looking at all of the historical documents that came in, that we need to discuss. And to close with that, we cannot accept things at face value. We need to dig deeper and question our values. So having a task force and a conversation about this, I don't see a concern on why we can't have this discussion. I think that it's warranted, it's respectful, so we need to move forward with this. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Merkel.
Thank you. And I'd like to point out, along with what Councilor Varela said, that this does allow up to 18 months to report back to the council. So I think that's important. I support the makeup of the task force, and also I think that's important to note as well. So it will be a lengthy, thoughtful process. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Prosnowski.
Thank you. I have a feeling that we're kind of putting the cart before the horse by making a task force at this time without having the educational aspect of it. I think we should all get a little history lesson on exactly what happened, and let's get to the bottom of exactly what transpired that made Salem incorporate that figure into the seal. The then maybe we should decide what kind of membership should go into a task force. I'm not against having a task force. It's about the membership of the task force. I think that we should include a representative from the Aceh people in Indonesia. It's a small world now. We can contact them. They can zoom in. I read the email from Professor Feener, who seems to be pretty knowledgeable on the studies of that, much more than I think anybody else in this room. And his feeling was that that those people who are going to be directly impacted, should have a say in this. And I happen to agree with him. So before the task force is made up, I think that we should just take a look at who we're appointing, how we're appointing them, and make sure that it's proper representation. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councilor Harvey.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I tend to agree with Councilor Prosnewski on this. I think that jumping right into a task force without the accurate knowledge amongst everybody is just exactly like you said, putting the cart before the horse. I don't believe the task force is necessary just yet. Thank you.
Further discussion. Councilor Jerslow.
Thank you, President Hapworth. Growing up in Salem, I always viewed the city sale as an honor to the Sumatran people for helping to put Salem on the map. I was saddened to hear that some find the city sale as a sign of racism. In recent decades, Salem has benefited greatly from our seafaring history. In fact, it has led to significant federal investments in our Salem Maritime National Historic Site. The Friendship replica ship was built and our wharves restored, all because of Salem's unique role in American history. How can we now say that the city no longer wants to honor and recognize that history, which continues to enrich our city today? Reading the minutes of the Race Equity Commission meeting held in June, the commission just about voted to change the city sale within a 4-month timeline without there being careful consideration and public input. I have serious concerns this will happen even with a task force in place, that it will be a very one-sided discussion. A professor who everybody's talking about tonight at the Kyoto University in Japan, Professor R. Michael Fenner, who was born and raised in Salem, wrote to the city council regarding his thoughts about changing the city sale and also included some thoughts from his Indonesian friends. One friend, Kut Puan Tuzani Pasha, who is an architect in Aceh Besar, Indonesia, wrote, and I quote, "Both sides, whether they agree or disagree on changing the city sale, share the same opinion that the history of Salem's trade with Sumatra is an important historical event that contributed to the creation of modern Salem. This historical period is clearly represented in the city sale, celebrating a long-term friendship between people from different ethnicities, connected through the sea and bringing prosperity to both sides. Isn't this one of the ideal situations we want to achieve in solving the issue of racism?" Professor Fenner wrote also, "I hope that perhaps this might prompt some consideration for the task force to, in a true spirit of inclusion, reach out directly to the members of the specific Akanese community being represented by the image on the seal, so that their voices can also be heard and appreciated in the process." Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion. Councilor Merkel, and then Councilor Stott.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I want to express my satisfaction with the makeup of the task force because I would fully expect them to listen to the voices that were just referenced and to do their due diligence, bringing in when it says, to credentialed historians. And I fully expect them to have those conversations with many people from the community that's represented in the seal. And I would think that this will cover all bases of research, and they will have those conversations, and they have a long length of time to do that. Thank you.
Councilor Stott.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I have a point of clarification question and then my comments. Is the order amended to include the city clerk? Okay, I just wasn't sure if I heard that. So my comments are, I fully support the forming of this task force. I think the cart and the horse that we're talking about here, let's say the horse is the seal, the cart is everything else that we want to have happen, those discussions, those deep dives, those historians. Who's going to do that? I'm not going to do that. You're not going to do that. A task force is the perfect opportunity for a group of people to come in and do that. As to the makeup of the task force, we have this in front of us. I know I reviewed it. I saw that there was a key member missing of the city clerk, requested that the city clerk be added. If there are any others, we've had time, we've had a meeting to discuss and review as far as the process of how this task force is created, the mayor nominates, and the council confirms, just like every other commission or committee within the city. So because of those points, I'm confident that this task force will be able to work and do what we're looking to do, which is a open community conversation around the city seal, which I think it is blatantly obvious after the public comment tonight that that is needed.
Councillor Morsillo.
Thank you. I need to agree with Councillor Stott. It looks to me like 7 of the members come back to the city council for confirmation. That is 2 historians and 5 residents in Salem. That's when we get to say whether they fully represent all the different viewpoints. I have to say, I have never spent so long reading about the city seal, learned a lot about it. There's a lot of different opinions. There's no way that this city council can decide who's correct in this particular situation, which is why I ask that a task force be created, because it shouldn't be up to the city council to do this. Let's let people who actually know a lot more, they're a lot more educated in digging up the history of things like this, talking to the different groups, getting students involved, getting different members of the community involved, and really having an open conversation. If there isn't consensus on whatever is put forward, if there's a consensus in the working group, in the task force to change the city seal, but there isn't a consensus among the residents of Salem, there's no way I'm going to vote for that. So that's the point of the task force, is for them to do the work, the research. I don't have time to do that research, and I'm not qualified to do that research. And it shouldn't be up to the city clerk to gather that research. That's not her job either. That's why you have a task force to do that work. There's still a pretty high bar for me to say that I'm going to vote to change the city seal. That has to come back from the task force with not only reasons, not only a design, but a consensus among the Salem residents to do so. Thank you.
Councillor Cohen.
Thank you, President Hapworth. A couple of things. I served on the Race Equity Task Force, and my beef with them, the other members, just like my beef with the Race Equity Task Force, I can't think of too many other task forces we had with Salem, is we spent way too much time talking about things. But that was the nature of both of those bodies, was to accumulate as much information and make some kind of educated recommendation, whether it was back to the council, whatever. The Race Equity Task Force, when they were done with their deliberation, became the CERC committee. At the last meeting, I mentioned that I didn't think that this council is the right venue for us to have a discussion. It is not. If we don't vote for the task force, as Councillor Stott said, we're basically making a decision about the seal right here. And because the seal was created through an ordinance, it has to come back to the council as we deal with every other ordinance. I am really concerned that a letter from one person with some other testimony outweighs other testimony from our community. And even though we've had a lot of letters, not as many as the thousands of no nicotine, whatever they are, that we receive, but we've received a lot of input from the community. I want to repeat that Mr. Carr, who spoke earlier and read some of his letter to the editor, he didn't read this part that he wrote. Now it appears that our city councilors, egged on by a few self-appointed guardians of public morality. He also said it's interesting that He called me out, Councillor Cohen, and the apparently microscopic few who are offended by the seal. Mr. Whittier said, no right to alter history is based on the whim of a few. The whole intent of what we're doing today is not to decide the merits of the seal. It's to create a body that is going to meet, and some of us may not even be city councilors when it comes back to the city council. And all the people have weighed in from all around the world and every part of Salem can come to these meetings. A task force is no different than a city board or committee. They will all be open to the public and everyone will be able to weigh in. And the best part about it is there's no limit, 1 minute or 1 minute and 17 seconds on testimony. People will be able to express themselves as they want. And I agree with Councilor Marcillo, when it does come back to us or whoever the councils are at the time, I do, we don't always agree, but we trust each other in deliberation. We have communication in the council and outside. So I really strongly urge us to decide that this is the right venue, a task force, to do this. Whether it comes back that we change the seal or not, that I believe is a decision that we should make. It is not really up to this body to decide today for everyone else.
All right. Reminder that we have each councilor may speak twice on any issue. I'll move to Councilor Watson because she hasn't spoken yet, and then I'll go to the Councilor Harvey.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I just want to echo my support for everything that Councilor Marcillo, Stott, and Cohen have said. I think in addition to whether or not, if we are all still in this seat, 'cause I think that's also an incredibly fair point Councilor Cohen made, it's not just yes or no at that point either. It is kick it back to task force, redesign task force. We can do whatever we want in this body when it comes to being given a recommendation, right? We can recommend that it go back. We can recommend that it goes into a committee. We can do all kinds of things. We can take all kinds of actions. And I think that there is a real sense from what I'm hearing from those that are opposed to this review task force, that it's I'm going to quote for those at home using air quotes, done deal, right? That this decision has been made. And I think that that's not fair to the public process. I think it's not accurate. I know for my own self, it's not accurate. I absolutely agree that a task force is the opportunity to help to educate the public in all kinds of ways. So to Councilor Prasnewski's point, Councilor Stott said, I'm reiterating her point about the cart versus the horse. Like that is the place for that conversation. That is the place for the education. That is the place for speakers to come in, for lecturers to come in, for an opportunity for anybody to come and do all kinds of demonstrations. The task force gets to run however the task force runs. And again, if we don't like who's appointed by the mayor, those 7 people that we will be confirming, then we don't confirm them and we send it back and say, find someone else. Like there are so many opportunities and security traps here to make sure that it is not a one-sided conversation, that I am wholeheartedly supporting the establishment of the task force in good conscience and with due respect. Thank you.
Councilor Harvey.
Thank you, President Hapworth. It's pretty obvious that we're going to end up putting a task force together for this. But I'd like to take what Councilor Marcillo was saying, everything, and, the fact that we all need to be educated on this, but I'm not one that's going to be able to do that. And I would actually propose that this be something that could put on the ballot. Let the citizens of our community vote on how they want, because we can put a task force together, but how many of the people, and shame on them for not showing up to the meetings, but the amount of people that actually show up to the meetings, as we all know, it's minimal. So, and some people aren't comfortable going to the meetings and speaking out in public. So if we put something like this on the ballot at an election, it's going to get people out to vote, and it's the citizens of our community that are actually saying yay or nay to whether it is done or not. But again, the task force is going to happen. So we'll go through that process. And then, I don't feel comfortable being on the city council, whether I am or not, like Councilor Cohen said. I don't feel like I'm the one, or any of us should be the ones that make that final decision. I think this is too big of an issue to be held just in city council. I think it should be something that the citizens of the community get to vote on. Thank you.
Councillor Kwasniewski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we all know that there will be a task force formed, and there's nothing wrong with having a task force. It's who's going to be on the task force. And having a task force without the representation from somebody from Sumatra or somebody from, say, people that are actually impacted by this, that's unfair. I feel that before the final decision is made up, which it appears to be tonight, that we only bring it back into committee like we did with the first part of the portion that Councilor Varela said. That's going back into committee to talk about the educational part about the city seal. Let's just bring that part back so that we can decide who is going to be on this task force. And I think it's very important that we reach out to the people of Sumatra. We reach out to the people that are being referred to in several emails and find out if somebody from on the other side of the world, maybe far away, but somebody may want to be part of this, that they do. If they do, that's great. We have representation from the people whose heritage is on our seal. If not, then we make a decision on who's going to be on that seal. That's all. So I guess I'm making a motion that this be just held in committee until we reach out to the people of Sumatra and find out if they want to be part of this. Thank you.
See no second. Councillor Cohen.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I'm going to respectfully disagree with the last two councilors who spoke. Having written the sanctuary ordinance and that going on the ballot, and watching what happened when Yes on 3, which was a bill that affected transgender rights, really should resonate with everyone that putting human rights on the ballot is never a good idea. It is always a disadvantage to minorities, marginalized communities. It's never a good idea. A majority can overwhelm everyone else. And the other thing about having a representative from Sumatra, and this is something that's kind of bothered me since this whole process started, is this assumption that there's no one in Salem from Sumatra. I'm just going to look around the council, and if you know someone who's from Sumatra, raise your hand. And it doesn't mean there isn't someone. And it doesn't mean there isn't someone who has a different opinion than the opinions that, were voiced from Indonesia. And the strength of a task force is to be able to gather information. So if there are experts, whether they're, in Indonesia or Salem or Mars or wherever, who want to weigh in, who know what people around the world or people who might have experienced this are affected by, fine. But, it doesn't mean that every committee and board that we have has to be represented exactly for that thing. One of the things that's really affected me is how the characterization of the seal has affected people that I know personally, and that they are offended in ways that I can't personally understand. And I've learned a lot just by this process about things, in our community that I would hope that we can do better at. So I'm not of the opinion that we need to have someone from this group or that group. If the discussion is the way it should be, and as Councilor Marcillus said, when it comes back to the council is going to decide if the process was a rightful one. So I'm not in favor of changing the composition or putting it back in committee. I think the sooner that this gets started, the better, and then we'll see what happens in 18 months.
All right. Councilor Kwasniewski had made a motion. I think there was just some confusion on the second. So would anybody like to second Councilor Kwasniewski's motion? Councilor Harvey. So Councilor Kwasniewski has made a motion that this remain in committee, seconded by Councilor Harvey. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter does not carry. All right, back to the main motion, which is that this be adopted as amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I recommend this be a roll call vote.
Do we see 3 hands for the roll call vote? Yep. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll. Councilor Morsillo.
I just want to make one final comment that There are 5 residents from Salem that will be appointed and 2 historians. People need to apply through the mayor's office. It's open to anyone. If you know historians, please reach out to them. I have tried to encourage people to apply. This is where the diversity of the group comes in. Please ask people to apply. Thank you.
Just so we're clear, we're voting, while the city clerk is writing this out, we're voting on adoption of the recommendation, and the amendment is to remove the city council from the list of attendee or the list of members and add the city clerk or her designee.
As amended.
Councilor Cohen,
Yes.
Councilor Davis,
Yes.
Councilor Harvey,
No.
Councilor Gerslow,
No.
Councilor Merkel,
Yes.
Councilor Marcillo,
Yes.
Councilor Presnowski,
No.
Councilor Stott,
Yes.
Councilor Varela,
Yes.
Councilor Watson Felt,
Yes.
and Councilor Hapworth.
Yes. On the establishing a Salem City Seal Task Force adoption as amended, we have 11 councilors voting, 8 in favor, 3 opposed. The matter carries. Communications from city officials, none. Petitions.
We have a request from Friends of North Shore Education Consortium to hold a road race Fastivious 5K for autism and use of city streets on December 15th, 2024.
Councilor Gerslow.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move this granted by roll call vote.
Councilor Gerslow moves. Councilor Gerslow moves this be granted. Any discussion? Councilor Gerslow.
This is Cindy Johnson. She's been running this for her, this is her 13th year. She's here tonight with us. She's does a fabulous job. They've raised over $240,000 for the North Shore Education Consortium. I want to thank her, her family, and her whole crew. They do a great job every year on this race. Good night.
And Cindy, we probably could have taken that out of order. I apologize that you had to sit here all night.
This be granted.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. On Councilor Gerslow's motion that this be granted, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further petitions.
We have a following long list of public guide applications.
Councilor Morsillo.
Thank you, President. I move that these 26 new public guides be granted.
Councilor Morsillo moves these be granted. Any discussion?
I think we're up over 300 now. Just if anyone's counting.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, on the motion these be granted, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further petitions.
We have one following public guide license application to be denied.
Councilor Morsillo.
I move that this be denied.
Councilor Morsillo moves this be denied. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Matter is denied. Further petitions.
We have one secondhand valuable license application.
Councilor Morsillo.
Thank you, President. I move that this be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs.
Councilor Morsillo moves this be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs. Any discussion?
No discussion.
Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further petitions.
We have 3 drain layer contract operator license applications.
Councilor Morsillo.
I move that these be granted.
Councilor Morsillo moves this be granted. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further petitions.
We have 3 claims.
Councilor Morsillo.
I move that these be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs.
Councilor Morsillo moves to refer to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further petitions.
We have 2 drain layer bonds.
Councilor Morsillo.
Thank you, President. I move that these be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs and returned approved.
Councilor Morsillo moves this be referred to the Committee on Ordinances, Licenses, and Legal Affairs and returned approved. And all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Unfinished business.
We have an ordinance for second passage relative to certificate of fitness.
Councillor Cohen.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move that this is adopted for second passage.
Councillor Cohen moves for adoption for second passage. Any discussion? On Councillor Cohen's motion for adoption for second and final passage, all those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further unfinished business.
We have the second passage of an ordinance to amend the data processing department, changing the name.
Councilor Marceau.
Thank you, President. I move for adoption for second and final passage.
Councilor Marceau moves for adoption for second and final passage. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further unfinished business.
We have the second passage of an ordinance amending traffic relative to handicap parking for North Street.
Councilor Stott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for second and final passage.
Councilor Stott moves for second and final passage. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further unfinished business.
We have the second passage of for an ordinance to amend an ordinance relative to traffic and handicap parking for Jefferson Avenue.
Councilor Varela.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move for adoption for second and final passage.
Councilor Varela moves for adoption for second and final passage. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further unfinished business.
We have an ordinance to amend an ordinance for second passage relative to traffic handicap parking for Broadway.
Councilor Cohen.
I move for second and final passage.
Councilor Cohen moves for adoption for second and final passage. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further unfinished business.
We have the second passage of an ordinance to amend an ordinance relative to traffic obedience to stop signs at Pioneer Circle.
Councilor Harvey.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move for second passage.
Councilor Harvey moves for adoption for second and final passage. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further unfinished business.
We have an ordinance relative to amendment, we have an amended ordinance relative to traffic for obedience to stop signs at Oak Street.
Councilor Stott.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for adoption for second passage.
Councilor Stott moves for adoption for second and final passage. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further unfinished business.
We have an ordinance, second passage of an ordinance to amend an ordinance relative to traffic resident sticker parking.
Councilor Jerslow.
Thank you, President Hapworth. I move adoption for second passage.
Councilor Jerslow moves for adoption for second and final passage. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. Further unfinished business.
We have an ordinance to amend an ordinance relative to various traffic ordinances for Naples Road.
Councilor Cohen.
I move for adoption for second and final passage.
Councilor Cohen moves for adoption for second and final passage. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries. And before we dismiss tonight, I do want to recognize Councilor Watson-Felt. It's her birthday today. It's yet another birthday in the council. And the best birthday present you could give all of us is being here today. We appreciate that.
It's your presence.
We do have a cake for her and a lovely candle back there that I need to light. So just hang tight just for a minute if you want to slice. And Councilor Prosnewski.
Make a motion to adjourn to the ante room.
Councilor Prosnewski moves to adjourn. All those in favor? Any opposed? Matter carries.